These are some statements on Protestantism over the change. Baptists say, there was and there is a commandment about keeping the Sabbath, but this Sabbath day was not Sunday. However, we can say, and with a feeling of triumph, that Sabbath was transferred from the seventh day to the first day, with all its duties, privileges, and sanctions. With a fervent will over this subject, will I have studied during many years, which I have studied for many years, I ask, where can we find the archives of these transactions? Not in the New Testament. There is nothing. There is no biblical evidence of the change for the institution from the seventh day to the first day. Dr. E. Hiscox, author of the Baptist Manual. The Congregationalists say, it is very clear that regardless of how rigid or consecrated or devoted we spend Sunday, we are not keeping Sabbath. Sabbath was founded over a specific divine commandment. We cannot find a specific commandment on Sunday. There is not a single line in the New Testament that suggests that we incur any punishment for violating the supposed sanctity of Sunday. Dr. R.W. Dale, The Ten Commandments, pages 106 and 107. These are what the Southern Baptists say. The sacred name of the seventh day is Sabbath. This fact is too obvious to refute. Exodus 20, verse 10. In this matter, the teaching of the Word has been admitted in all generations. Not at a single time the disciples applied the Sabbatic law to the first day of the week. This madness was done in a future time, neither did they pretend that the question. Pages 14, 15, and 17. Free Lutheran Church says, as it was not possible to produce a single place in the Holy Scriptures that would testify that the Lord himself or the apostles ordered a transferal from Sabbath to Sunday, then it was not easy to answer the question, who has transferred Sabbath, the Sabbath, and who has the authority to do it? George Svendrup, A New Day. Protestant Episcopalian. The day now has changed from the seventh day to the first day, but since we do not find with any biblical direction such a change, we conclude that it was done by the biblical authority of the church. The explanation of Catechism. Baptists. Scriptures don't call the first day of the week Sabbath in any place. There is no biblical authority to do it. Not, of course, any biblical obligation. The Watchman. The Presbyterians say, there is not a single word, neither a hint in the New Testament over the abstinence of working on Sunday. The observance of Ash Wednesday has its foundation on the same basis as the observance of Sunday. The divine law does not get in the dominical rest. Canon Eden, the Ten Commandments. The Anglicans say, and where are we told in the Scriptures that we must keep the first day? We are required to keep the seventh, but in no place are we ordered to observe the first day. Isaac Williams' Plain Sermons of the Catechism, pages 334 and 336. The disciples of Christ say there is no biblical authority designating the first day as the Lord's day. Dr. D.H. Lucas, Christian Oracle, January 23, 1890. The Methodists say, it is true that there is no positive mandate for the baptism of infants, neither is there one to keep the first day of the week. Many believe that Christ changed the Sabbath, but from his own words we see that he didn't come with that purpose, though those who believe that Jesus changed the Sabbath based that only on a supposition. Amos Bimney, Theological Compendium, pages 180 and 181. The Episcopalian. We have made the change from the seventh day to the first day, from Sabbath to Sunday, by authority of the only sacred Catholic and Apostolic Church of Christ. Bishop Seymour, Why We Keep Sunday. These are what the Southern Baptists say. The sacred name of the seventh day is Sabbath. This fact is too obvious to refute. Exodus 20, verse 20. On this matter, the teaching of the word has been admitted in all generations. Not a single time did the disciples apply the sabbatical law to the first day of the week. This madness was done in a future time. Neither did they pretend that the first day would supplant the seventh. Joseph Judson Taylor, The Sabbath Question, pages 14, 15, and 17. The American Congregationalists, the current notion that Christ and his apostles in American Congregationalists, the current notion that Christ and his apostles on American Congregationalists, the current notion that Christ and his apostles in authoritarian way substituted the first day for the seventh is absolutely without authority in the New Testament. Dr. Layman Abbott in the Christian Union, June 26, 1890. This is what the Christian Church says. There is no testimony in all oracles of heaven that Sabbath has been changed or that the Lord's Day came in its place. Alexander Campbell in the Reporter, October 8, 1920. Baptists. It seems inexplicable to me that Jesus, during 3 years of discussions with his disciples, in many opportunities talking with them about the Sabbath, covering its various aspects, freeing it from all false shine Jewish traditions, never alluded to the transferal on this day. Neither during the 40 days of his resurrection did he insinuate that, nor, as for all we know, did the Spirit, which was given to them to remind them of all things that he said, addressed this question, neither advising nor instructing that they discussed this subject. Clearly I know well that Sunday came into the history of the first Christians as a religious day, as we learn from our Christian fathers and other sources, but it is pitiful that it had come with a mark of paganism and baptized with the name of the God's Son, then adopted and sanctified by the papal apostasy and inherited as a sacred legacy to Protestantism. Dr. E.T. Hiscox, report on his sermon in the Baptist Ministerial Convention in the New York Examiner, November 16, 1893. In Romans 14, 1 through 23, the Apostle Paul writes to the primitive Christian Church of Rome, formed by Gentiles and Jews, and among some of the latter, the Essenians. This Jewish sect had begun in the 2nd century BC. It was characterized by extreme Puritanism. It celebrated the annual holidays and ceremonial Sabbaths of the Jews besides its own festivities. There is evidence that they abstained from drinking wine and eating meat, especially on those holidays, when a culture so Puritan as theirs had to deal with the Hellenic pagan culture of the Gentiles. Now that all had accepted the Christian faith, a collision was produced between the weak and the strong of the strong. Among other things, by eating meat. Of course, the two groups did it with the best intention to please their recently accepted Savior, Jesus Christ. This whole chapter refers to non-essential disputes over what to eat or not, or on what days yes and on what days not. Through the centuries, those who worship on Sunday have promoted the thesis that Paul in Romans 14, verse 5 and 6, has eradicated the weekly Sabbath from the fourth commandment of the moral law of God. Romans 14, 5 and 6. One man considers one day more sacred than another. Another man considers every day alike. Each one should be fully convinced in his own mind. He who regards one day as special.